listen to me. I'm gonna get off the phone right now, and I am going to let you professionals look at the situation and come back to me with a solution. No matter what, no matter what nobody said. Let's just here and there, y'all are not working together the right way. We're losing.
In the chaos surrounding Diddy's arrest, the explosive allegations, and the conviction that stunned everyone, an even bigger twist has dropped. And no, it's not 50 Cent's controversial documentary. This is something no one saw coming. Never before seen footage of Shawn Diddy Combs from the days before his New York arrest has surfaced, and it's already drawing a sharp reaction from 50 Cent. So what's really happening? Stick with us. The details are wild. The rise, the rumble, and the reckoning of Shawn Diddy Combs. Long before the headlines, the courtroom sketches, and the swirling allegations that would later engulf him, Shawn Diddy Combs was the king of the New York skyline, a self-made mogul who turned ambition into empire. His ascent was fast, loud, and legendary. Born in Harlem and raised in Mount Vernon, Combs carved his way into the music industry with an intensity that earned him both admiration and fear. At Uptown Records, he was the young executive whose instincts were sharper than the boardroom suits around him, until he was abruptly fired in 1993. But that dismissal only ignited the spark that would become Bad Boy Records. With Bad Boy, the myth of Diddy began. Christopher Wallace, the notorious B.I.G., became the label's nucleus, a lyrical titan whose partnership with Combs redefined East Coast rap. Their reign coincided with an era of excess, rivalry, and danger. According to reports, Combs cultivated an image as a charming disruptor, yet one surrounded by escalating tension. The infamous 1999 nightclub shooting, where Combs faced charges but was ultimately acquitted, was one of the first highly public legal storms that hinted at a darker undertow in his world. Even then, the whispers of "Bad Boy for Life" felt less like a brand slogan and more like a cautionary prophecy. His relationships unfolded alongside his success and scandals, each chapter adding layers to his public persona. With Jennifer Lopez, he became part of a glamorous pop culture duo, yet even that fairy tale romance intersected with turmoil. Lopez was with Combs the night of the shooting incident. According to court records, the trial that followed put intense strain on their relationship, ending it not long after. Then came Kim Porter, the woman widely considered the stabilizing force in his life. Their relationship spanned decades, on and off, and blended family and business in a way few others could. Porter's tragic death in 2018 marked a turning point for Combs. The loss was deep, public, and openly acknowledged by him as devastating. Yet even with grief shadowing him, the empire continued moving. Cassie Ventura entered his orbit at the height of his influence, young, talented, and stepping into a world where power and glamour blurred with control. Their relationship, publicly confirmed in the late 2000s, lasted over a decade. But behind the public appearances and luxury vacations, darker claims allegedly simmered. In 2023, Cassie filed a civil lawsuit accusing Combs of abuse, exploitation, and coercion, allegations he denied before settling the suit within 24 hours. According to sources, that settlement raised questions about what had been happening behind the scenes. It would later be viewed as the first crack in a facade that had seemed unshakable for years. Meanwhile, Combs' run-ins with the law continued to punctuate his story. A 2015 altercation at UCLA, involving a kettlebell and his son's football coach, made national headlines. Charges were later dropped, but the incident added fuel to a growing narrative that trouble often followed him. Allegations of workplace misconduct, lawsuits from former employees, and claims of excessive control over artists surfaced intermittently, creating an unsettling pattern. Although many accusations never resulted in convictions, the cumulative effect painted a portrait of a man whose power operated in the shadows as much as in the spotlight. Still, Combs maintained his status as a cultural heavyweight. Ciroc deals, fashion lines, TV projects. He was everywhere. Publicly, he preached black excellence, entrepreneurship, and empowerment. Privately, according to some insiders, there were murmurs of unchecked excess and a lifestyle spiraling into something unmanageable. By the time federal investigations reportedly began circling in 2024, the world was already buzzing with speculation. When he was eventually arrested in New York, after the civil suits, the allegations, the leaked accounts of raids and seizures, it felt less like a lightning strike and more like the inevitable crest of a long-rising wave. His story, once framed as pure triumph, now reads like a slow-burning tragedy. And then there was Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. If Combs was the king of bad boy, 50 was the gleeful disruptor watching the throne shake. Their rivalry spanned decades. Petty jabs, memes, industry shots. But after Combs' legal troubles erupted, 50 Cent transformed from playful antagonist to full-blown commentator. He became one of the loudest voices dissecting Combs' downfall, producing documentaries, amplifying allegations, and turning the saga into a cultural spectacle. According to observers, 50's interest wasn't just entertainment. It symbolized a generational shift. Artists calling out the old guard, demanding accountability where silence once reigned. So now, as never before seen footage, leaked details, and further investigations swirl, Diddy's legacy stands suspended between what he built and what threatens to undo it. A tale once defined by brilliance and swagger has evolved into one of scrutiny, consequences, and a reckoning that the world is watching unfold in real time. The leaked footage that cracked the narrative. For years, Shawn "Diddy" Combs curated his image with near-military precision. Every camera angle mattered, every quote served a purpose, every public-facing moment was crafted to reinforce the aura that had shielded him for decades. He had weathered storms before. The 1999 nightclub shooting case, the trials that followed, the whispers that swirled around his personal and professional life. Through each controversy, he managed to emerge polished, powerful, and strangely untouched. But according to sources familiar with the matter, the most explosive shift in his narrative didn't erupt from a courtroom or a tell-all interview. It came from footage he allegedly filmed himself, footage never meant to see the light of day. The video, reportedly obtained by Netflix for the docuseries Shawn Combs, The Reckoning, peeled back a layer of Diddy's world that had rarely, if ever, been revealed. The clip opens with Combs in a private space, pacing, tense, his voice caught between frustration and command. "You want to put the stuff in my fanny pack?" he asks someone off camera, the edge in his tone unmistakable. The moment is mundane on the surface, almost trivial, yet loaded with the kind of unfiltered energy that public figures often work tirelessly to conceal. Then the scene shifts. He's seated, voice rising and falling sharply as he speaks to his legal team. "Listen to me," he says, trying to maintain control while losing it. "I'm going to get off the phone right now, and I'm going to let you professionals look at the situation and come back to me with a solution." The cadence is urgent, clipped, spiraling. No matter what, nobody said. Let's just hear. And there, y'all are not working together the right way. We're losing. The rawness is unmistakable. This is not the Diddy of music videos, interviews, or corporate boardrooms. This is a man cornered, calculating, and visibly unraveling. Director Alex Stapleton, who helmed the docuseries, noted that one of the most surprising elements was simply that the footage existed at all. "It was surprising that he actually filmed it," she said, referencing Combs' well-known history of image control. "He has a knack for branding and marketing, and it was interesting to watch how he weighed public perception even in private moments." But the camera isn't always kind. As the footage continues, the audience is transported to Harlem, Diddy's home turf, a place woven into the mythology of his rise. Yet the man in the video doesn't greet the environment like a triumphant hometown hero. Instead, he moves with a guardedness that borders on discomfort. He shakes hands, accepts hugs, and smiles for supporters. The energy is warm on the surface, but something in his body language flickers with unease. That minute shift in energy, though barely perceptible, would play a huge role in how Diddy would be perceived in the future. The footage continues until the crowd disperses. Once they are gone, Combs mutters, almost involuntarily, "God, I feel like I need to wash, like I'm dirt." It's a jarring shift. a candid remark made in a moment where, according to the director, he momentarily forgot he was being recorded. It wasn't staged, rehearsed, or polished. It was Diddy without the armor. The documentary doesn't stop at the footage itself. It pulls back the curtain even further, featuring 2 jurors from Combs's recent trial speaking publicly for the first time. Their mixed verdict, guilty on 2 prostitution-related counts, not guilty on racketeering and sex trafficking charges, had sparked widespread debate. Juror 75 described Combs and singer Cassie Ventura as 2 people in love, while Juror 160 noted, domestic violence wasn't one of the charges. The differing viewpoints raised key questions, including how narratives, public sympathies, and courtroom parameters intertwine to shape outcomes. One interviewee in the series explains their belief that Cassie was a victim, citing her very young age when the relationship began and her long-term exposure to an environment she allegedly became conditioned to. The documentary doesn't claim answers. Instead, it leaves viewers sifting through layers of perspective, testimony, and silence. The goal, Stapleton says, was to let the audience ask, were decisions colored by certain biases? Who received the benefit of the doubt? In the midst of these revelations, the docu-series wrestles with a larger cultural question. Was hip-hop itself on trial? Curtis, 50 Cent Jackson, the executive producer, pushes back against that idea. No, he says plainly, not at all. His argument is that silence would have been interpreted as complicity. If those with influence remained quiet, the culture itself would appear to endorse whatever behaviors were under scrutiny. Harlem, hand sanitizer, and the mask slipping. Harlem had always been more than a backdrop for Shawn "Diddy" Combs. It was the canvas of his identity, the crucible of his early ambition, and, increasingly, a mirror reflecting the cracks in the empire he had built. In the newly surfaced footage, the streets of his youth become a stage for a portrait of Diddy few had ever seen. A man caught between his cultivated image and the unfiltered reality of his own mortality and vulnerability. The camera follows him as he navigates the crowded sidewalks, hands extended for greetings, hugs offered and returned, smiles exchanged. Onlookers sense the presence of a star, yet behind the charisma, Combs moves with a subtle wariness. According to sources familiar with the filming, the discomfort is genuine, not performative. I'll accept, I need some hand sanitizer, he mutters, fumbling through his bag. Hold on, I've been out in the streets amongst the people. Yeah, I gotta take a bath. It's like 150 hugs. The statement is delivered with a mixture of humor and exasperation, but the layers of tension beneath the words are palpable. The public often saw Diddy as impervious, a man whose presence radiated control, luxury, and invincibility. Yet here, in Harlem, the armor falters. In a fleeting, almost casual moment, he whispers, "God, I feel like I need to wash. Like I'm dirt." There is no audience beyond the camera crew. The comment slips out unguarded. A rare glimpse at the private anxieties of a man whose public life had long been scripted. According to director Alex Stapleton, moments like these were central to the series' aim, to show the human side of someone who had become mythologized, and to reveal the dissonance between public perception and lived experience. Even as Diddy moved through the crowd, a certain rhythm emerged, part ritual, part performance. Each handshake, each nod, each smile was executed with precision, yet punctuated by micro-reactions that betrayed an underlying unease. The hand sanitizer, the whispered confessions, the brief pauses of reflection, all were subtle markers of a man negotiating the collision between celebrity and consequence. In context, they speak to more than hygiene or superstition. They hint at a growing awareness that, even at the peak of influence, the world was starting to close in. This was compounded by the legal pressures that had been mounting for months. According to court documents and public records, Diddy was already under scrutiny, facing serious allegations that would later lead to his arrest in New York. The footage, in retrospect, reads like a man bracing for impact, trying to maintain control in public while privately contending with chaos. The Harlem Walk, the 150 hugs, the hand sanitizer. Each small gesture becomes symbolic, a negotiation between intimacy and isolation, connection and protection. The sequence also underscores an essential truth about Diddy's dual existence. He had always been a man of extremes. On one hand, he was the orchestrator of an empire, commanding attention from boardrooms to stadiums. On the other hand, he was profoundly human, subject to fatigue, doubt, and the acute awareness of exposure. The Harlem moment crystallizes this tension, transforming it from anecdotal curiosity into a critical insight about power, perception, and vulnerability. As the docuseries progresses, the Harlem footage operates as a narrative fulcrum. It transitions the story from the abstract pressures of legal strategy to the tangible reality of Diddy in the streets, a star confronted with the simple, inevitable truth of human interaction. According to sources involved with the series, these moments were deliberately retained not for sensationalism, but for their raw honesty. A man simultaneously larger than life and intimately flawed. In the grand arc of Diddy's trajectory, Harlem represents both origin and reckoning. It is where the public persona meets the private reckoning, where handshakes and hugs collide with legal anxieties, where charisma is tempered by vulnerability. And while the audience may be drawn to the spectacle, the deeper narrative emerges in the pauses, the glances, the small human moments that speak to a man wrestling with the consequences of decades of fame, ambition, and choices. Choices that, as later events would show, were inexorably tied to his past, his present, and the turbulent path that would culminate in confrontation, courtroom scrutiny, and the ultimate cultural reckoning. Inside the jury room, mixed verdict, mixed motives. As Shawn Diddy Combs' public presence grew more scrutinized, the legal consequences of his actions began to solidify. The docu-series Shawn Combs, The Reckoning, takes the audience inside the aftermath of his arrest, shedding light not only on the man himself, but also on the complex dynamics of justice in high-profile cases. Nowhere is this more evident than in the unprecedented interviews with two jurors from the trial, voices that had previously remained behind the veil of secrecy. Juror 75 describes the relationship between Combs and Cassie Ventura in terms that are almost startling in their candor. Two people in love, she says, offering a perspective at odds with the simplified narratives often portrayed in the media. Juror 160, however, tempers that view with a procedural observation. Domestic violence wasn't one of the charges. The split in interpretation illuminates a broader tension in the trial, the intersection between perception, legal boundaries, and human judgment. According to sources familiar with the deliberations, the jurors wrestled with conflicting impressions of Combs, the mogul and cultural icon, juxtaposed against allegations that cast long shadows over his career. Their verdict, guilty on 2 counts of prostitution-related offenses, but not guilty on racketeering or sex trafficking charges, reflects that tension. It is a legal compromise that mirrors the public discourse surrounding him, nuanced, divided, and far from absolute. The series emphasizes the personal journeys of these jurors as much as the legal outcome itself. Their commentary serves as a lens into the pressures inherent in high-profile cases, where public scrutiny, cultural context, and personal conscience collide. Were their decisions colored by certain things? One narrator asks, echoing the series' central inquiry. Who got the benefit of the doubt? These questions, left deliberately open-ended, encourage viewers to wrestle with the ethical gray zones of justice, to consider not only what was proven in court, but also how narratives, biases, and media coverage shaped the process. Cassie's role in the proceedings emerges as a particularly poignant element. Entering the public eye as a young adult, she became intertwined with Combs' world of fame, power, and influence. According to legal filings and interviews included in the series, her experiences reflect both vulnerability and resilience. Observers note that the jury's interpretation of her role, victim, participant, or something in between, highlights the complexity of adjudicating relationships entangled with fame, financial power, and public perception. The docu-series does not shy away from the human dimensions of these judgments. Jurors recount moments of internal conflict, instances of doubt, and the weight of responsibility. Their reflections, coupled with the archival footage of Combs navigating his Harlem appearances, create a narrative rhythm that oscillates between spectacle and substance. The juxtaposition reinforces a central thesis. In the court of law and in the court of public opinion, context matters as much as evidence. Ultimately, the jurors' testimonies reveal that the trial was as much a reflection of society's evolving understanding of power, celebrity, and accountability as it was a legal process. Their divergent perspectives illustrate the complexities faced by those tasked with interpreting behavior that exists at the intersection of wealth, influence, and culture. In these moments, the series transcends traditional biographical storytelling, offering instead a layered exploration of morality, judgment, and the human tendency to reconcile admiration with accountability. By highlighting the deliberations and thought processes behind the verdict, Shawn Combs, The Reckoning situates the audience in a rare vantage point. It is not simply about right or wrong, guilt or innocence. It is about understanding the mechanics of decision-making in situations where charisma, reputation, and raw human behavior converge. The series, through these intimate juror interviews, reveals the stakes of influence, both for the defendant and for those tasked with interpreting the truth in his orbit. The culture question: was hip-hop on trial? The trial of Shawn Diddy Combs was more than a legal proceeding. It became, in the eyes of the public and media, a prism through which the behavior of an entire cultural movement was scrutinized. Allegedly, for some observers, the courtroom was not merely assessing the actions of one man, but questioning the values and ethics embedded within hip-hop itself. Yet the narrative, carefully shaped by directors and commentators in Shawn Combs. The Reckoning suggests a different truth. Hip-hop as a culture was not on trial. Combs was. Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, serving as executive producer of the series, underscores this distinction. "No, not at all," he says emphatically in interviews. Silence, he explains, would have been interpreted as tacit approval. If no influential voices within the community spoke out, the culture could appear complicit in behaviors now under scrutiny. According to sources close to the production, this insight informed much of the docuseries framing. The audience must distinguish between systemic issues in celebrity culture and the individual accountability of those navigating its heights. The footage interweaves Diddy's public and private spheres, juxtaposing his charisma with moments of vulnerability. Handshakes in Harlem, 150 hugs, whispered admissions of needing to wash after being among the crowd. These moments, amplified by commentary from jurors and insiders, create a narrative tension between perception and reality, illustrating the weight of celebrity scrutiny. According to Stapleton, these scenes were deliberately preserved to show that influence carries responsibility, and that even the most untouchable figures are accountable to both the law and society. Public reaction to the trial and series reflects broader cultural anxieties. Fans, detractors, and observers alike debated whether Combs' fall from grace signaled a reckoning for celebrity excess, or whether it was merely an isolated incident misinterpreted as systemic critique. The series invites the audience to consider the intersection of entertainment, power, and morality, demonstrating that in cases of high-profile misconduct, the line between cultural commentary and legal judgment is often blurred. Ultimately, the docuseries asserts that the question of hip-hop on trial is a red herring. The focus, repeatedly emphasized by jurors and producers, is the accountability of the individual, Combs, whose actions, choices, and relationships created ripples far beyond his immediate sphere. His life, both public and private, becomes a lens to examine celebrity, influence, and the societal structures that elevate and protect cultural icons. By framing the narrative this way, Shawn Combs, The Reckoning refuses to settle for sensationalism alone. It places the audience inside the tension, forcing reflection on the interplay between fame, power, and ethics, and leaving viewers to grapple with the uncomfortable question: how does a society reconcile admiration for a legend with accountability for alleged transgressions? What do you think about this revelation of Diddy? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like and subscribe buttons. Turn on the notification bell to be notified of our latest uploads.